Hey, let's talk about the 2026 Pokemon Standard Rotation. 2026 Standard Format Rotation is upon us on April 10th when Perfect Order becomes legal for in-person tournaments. All Pokemon cards with a G regulation mark will rotate out of Standard. They will no longer be legal to play in Standard unless, like Boss's Orders, they've since been reprinted with an H, I, or J regulation mark. On PokemonTCG Live, rotation will occur on March 26th as soon as Perfect Order appears on the platform. So, without further ado, let's get into the best cards that are going to rotate, and then we'll talk about some of the best looking decks coming into this rotation to benefit from it. So, started off, probably the best card that we're going to see leave this rotation is the Gardevoir EX with Psychic Embrace ability. And let's see what Natalie said about it. Gardevoir EX is arguably the most powerful and successful card in the history of the Pokemon TCG. The Psychic Embrace ability lets you attach infinite energy from your discard pile to your Psychic Pokemon, and while you do have to do damage to your own Pokemon for each energy you attach, this ended up being an advantage recently with Munkidori's Adrena Brain ability. A little bit of history here. Gardevoir EX started off being used with Kirlia from Silver Tempest and this Gardevoir here from Chilling Reign to draw a ton of extra cards and take big knockouts with Brainwave and Storm Slash. After the E-Block rotation, the deck switched to using Drifloon from Scarlet and Violet base and Screamtail from Paradox Rift with Bravery Charm alongside Kirlia and Munkidori. Recently, after Silver Tempest rotated with the F-Block, Gardevoir switched to using Heavy Draw supporters and using Frillish to item lock. The current Gardevoir EX deck looks completely different to what it looked all the way back at EUIC 2023 for sure. But there are players who have stuck with Psychic Embrace since they were taking massive knockouts with Zacian V. Many players have grown tired of Gardevoir EX due to its constant dominance of the standard format. This is Stephanie speaking. I believe that in time, many players will grow to appreciate the complicated games and intricate matchups that have been played out over the last 3 years. Sayonara, Psychic Embrace. For sure, I'm glad to see this one go. I never really played it too much, so I don't have too much attachment to it, and it terrorized me. So we're all set with that card. Next up, we got a supporter, Iono. N and Rocket's admin have had storied histories in the Pokemon TCG, and Iono followed in their footsteps. While it has the small twist of putting cards onto the bottom of the decks, it has been facilitating comebacks and creating dramatic games since the release of Paldea Evolved. We do still have the unfair stamp for similar effect, but as it's an A-spec, it's going to be difficult for players to find it on the right turn, especially with Arven getting rotated out, which we'll talk about in a second. Iono has been the staple of many competitive decks, and alongside Counter Catcher will be missed by many players come April, for sure. This was a massive disruptor, and it will be different without having it. Players are not going to have to worry as much about what the other guy's doing, and they'll be able to just sort of set up without having a worry. We'll see what they add to the game in the next coming sets. Next, we got Arven, and this is a big one. I feel like this is used in so many decks. It's been the centerpiece of many competitive decks over its lifetime. While it took a few sets to catch on with the release of TM Evolution in Paradox Rift and the rotation of the E-Block, Arven became the go-to setup supporter card for many players. Yeah, absolutely. While it lost some effectiveness when Forest Sealstone rotated out of Standard, Arven is a mainstay in a ton of decks these days, and I'm sure many decks will suffer from its loss. Absolutely. It's a massive setup card, especially for my Goldengo deck that I've been abusing, and just super good. It allows you to basically pull any item you want, and as well as a Pokemon tool card. So, good stuff there. Will be missed. And next we got Goldengo. If you've noticed from my lives, or you've just seen the titles even, you'll know I've been abusing this deck, and I'm going to be sad to see it go, but not too sad. I mean, it's always good to move on to something new. Who knows, I might just shift right over to Mega Lucario with a Solrock and Lunatone. Who knows what we'll do. Goldengo EX didn't do much when it first released, however, it definitely wins Most Improved award thanks to its recent dominance. The release of Genesect EX and Air Balloon, as well as the Solrock and Lunatone combo, pushed this deck over the edge and made it one of the strongest Pokemon decks in the format. The rotation of Goldengo EX effectively removes it from Standard, opening the door for another aggressive deck to take its role. Yeah, it's kind of sad because it was just recently buffed so heavily by those cards I just aforementioned, and yeah, without the Goldengo, there's not going to be any room for the rest of the nonsense going on in this deck. The Make It Rain, it all revolves around Make It Rain. So, anyways, the next card is Charizard EX Terra Dark from Obsidian Flames, and it's seen varying success throughout its time in Standard, but its raw stats have generally remained unparalleled. Charizard EX rotating out removes one of the biggest tank options we've had recently in the Pokemon TCG. Absolutely, this one has been really good and can power up really fast, especially combined with Pidgeot EX. So Pidgeot EX also arguably the stronger half of the Charizard Pidgeot deck. Absolutely. The quick search ability was so crucial to the setup of that Charizard and really enabled that whole thing to happen. Searching your deck for any card every turn is incredibly strong, and its effect will be difficult to replace, especially on a Pokemon it's difficult to KO as a 280 HP Stage 2. Expect to see significant fewer copies of Team Rocket's Watchtower post-rotation, because they won't be used to turn off Quick Search. Interesting. And next we got Professor's Research. This is a pretty big one as well. While it was already effectively replaced by Lily's Determination, it has still been the strong backbone of a ton of successful decks during its time in Standard, with Lily's Determination being the only strong draw supporter in the format. The rotation of Professor's Research reduces how aggressive decks with an inbuilt draw engine can be, perhaps slowing the game down somewhat. It'll be a nice change of pace to the Standard format without Professor's Research kind of supporter. We'll see what they do. They might add something again, but it already sort of has been replaced with Lily's Determination, so they might just leave it alone. And next we have the Nest Ball. It had been the premier way to find basic Pokemon ever since the release of Scarlet and Violet Base, and gives a ton of aggressive decks an easy way to find their Pokemon. I loved this in Goldengo for bringing about the Genesect. But now, without that, I still have the Precious Trolley. I mean, Genesect is done anyways, but just theoretically, you can still use Precious Trolley, but you can only have one. So now if that's prized, you're cooked. Solrock and Lunatone still have Fighting Gong. Fighting Gong is going to be big. This is a buff to fighting decks, because fighting decks still can have 4 Fighting Gong in them, which is super versatile because it's like a Nest Ball for a fighting deck. However, if you've already filled up your bench, you can bring about an energy, so it's really strong. Here are some other strong cards that are going to rotate. Single prize Pokemon, 2 prize Pokemon. I'm not going to read them all. I'm just going to scroll. Item cards, dual cards, stadium cards, energy cards. Now, the interesting part, let's talk about the biggest winners of the rotation. Any Pokemon with a Psychic weakness. Two biggest are Greninja EX from Twilight Masquerade and Mega Lucario EX, which were stonewalled from the top of the metagame by their weakness to Gardevoir. With Gardevoir gone, it opens the floodgates for both of these decks to appear. Mega Lucario EX has the potential to one-hit any Pokemon in the format, and Greninja EX can snipe multiple Pokemon at once using that Mirage Barrage. Notably, without Iono and Counter Catcher, these aggressive strategies become stronger. The position of Solrock and Lunatone also improves a lot. The simplest way to prevent your opponent from prize racing is by having an entirely single prize board in the early game, and the combination of Solrock and Lunatone gives you a way to draw cards and attack without benching a multi-prize Pokemon. Greninja EX can go around this completely with Mirage Barrage by taking multiple KOs, and without Pidgeot EX, Greninja decks may struggle a bit to set up the difficult costs associated with Mirage Barrage. Regardless, both Greninja EX and Mega Lucario EX get unlocked effectively once rotation happens. For sure, I'm not sure how strong they are going to be based on the next deck we're talking about, Alakazam. Alakazam is one of the most polarized decks right now. It typically destroys Gholdengo EX. Yeah, this thing is a nightmare for me. But has an absolutely miserable time into Gardevoir EX and Dragapult EX due to their ability to hit multiple Pokemon at once. It also struggles against Iono because it relies so heavily on its hand size. With the rotation of Iono and Gardevoir EX, this deck has a chance to carve a new niche in the metagame. Against any aggressive multi-prize deck, Alakazam feels like the strongest deck ever created, and as it is able to take a one-hit KO by using just a single prize Pokemon. Without many of its issues rotating away, this could be a chance for Alakazam to shine. I agree, I think this one's going to do really well post-rotation. However, it's definitely going to get held up by Dragapult, which I don't think is going away. And lastly, we got Team Rocket, another good deck already, and losing Iono is going to benefit this one. Team Rocket's Archer has each player shovels their hand into their deck. You draw 5, your opponent draws 3. So one of now the only ways of disruption is Team Rocket's Archer, and it's extremely underpowered in the current format. Team Rocket's Mewtwo EX is just so far away from competing with Gardevoir and Charizard, but with these powerful options leaving, a power gap could open for this deck to slot in. It can cosplay as a single prize deck for most of the game with Team Rocket's Spidops, and you can chain Team Rocket's Archer thanks to Team Rocket's Transceiver to disrupt their hand. While this deck can't really compete in the current format, after the rotation it has one of the few sources of hand disruption left in the format, allowing it to do what other decks can't. So this is interesting. I actually think this deck is stronger than Natalie lets on, but she's a better player than me, so I'm probably just wrong about that. But this deck feels pretty strong already, even though she doesn't give it a ton of credit. And definitely, without having to compete with Gardevoir and Charizard is tough. And without that, I think this is going to be a really good deck. I think the Team Rocket's Mewtwo EX is okay, but I do think it plays best as a single prize deck. Team Rocket Spidops does a ton of damage. If you have 6 Team Rocket's Pokemon in play, that's 180 off a single prize card, which is pretty crazy. Still, not sure if this can compete with the aforementioned Alakazam. I think this is the biggest winner. We'll see if Dragapult can put up with this, or what the end result of that is, and I will read the conclusion as written by Natalie. Rotation is always the most exciting time in the Pokemon TCG, and this is shaping up to be one of the most impactful rotations we have ever seen. Standard looks like it will play completely different after the rotation, and I'm very excited to see where the Pokemon TCG goes without Gardevoir EX and Charizard EX Amen to that. Everybody, thanks for watching, and have a great day.